Welcome everybody to a new episode of Be Safe or Be Brave. Today's topic is about the most common Islamic lies. You might ask me, why are you so concerned about Islam, first of all, and why are you talking today about the Islamic lies? Or why do I even call them this way? Well, simply I grew up in a Middle Eastern country where Islam is dominating any other minorities, and I hear Islam every day and night from mosques, from TV, from school, from workplace, from everywhere. I know lots about Islam, and I know exactly what's the truth, what they really believe in, and what they claim to be about Islam, even among themselves and among others, especially here in a Western world. Most Muslims were try to present Islam as a peaceful religion, as a religion that respects women, as a religion that respects poor people, as a religion that respects minorities, as a religion that respects non-Muslims, which is a big lie. I'm mainly concerned about many things. Actually, I have a long list of things I want to go through quickly. Today's episode is not going to discuss every single lie in details. I'm just going to go quickly mention one or two verses from Quran or from the Hadith. Quran is the book of Islam, like it's kind of equivalent to the Bible for Christians and Jews, but it's written by Muhammad himself. Muhammad is the prophet of Islam, and he also, besides his Hadith, besides his Quran, he also has something called Hadith. Hadith means what he used to teach and what he used to talk to his followers, besides the Quran itself, which is very important and equally important to Muslims, the same way Quran is important. So before I go in those most common lies Muslims always tell about Islam, let me just tell you one simple concept in Islam called al-taqiyya. Al-taqiyya is an Islamic practice taught and given and practiced by Muhammad himself, the prophet of Islam or the messenger of Islam, and also his successors did it. Taqiyya is a practice called Islamic dissimulation. Taqiyya is simply, according to Muslim scholars, it's the way you can deny or hide your Islamic faith if you are in danger. It's kind of like you hide it, like somebody tell you, oh, are you Muslim? And of course you can say, oh, no, I'm not, just because you want to rescue yourself. That's what they pretend it is, but technically it's way more than that. It's not just because they want to protect themselves, but also that's a practice that is being done all day long in their life, even between a man and his wife. I'll give you a few examples of what taqiyya means, then I'll go to the details. I don't want to bore you with long introduction. Taqiyya is, for example, if I want to go to my friend, let's call him John. Okay, so I go to John. Hey John, are you home? Or like I try to call him. He doesn't answer. Then when I go to his house, I knock the door, and I see John's daughter. And when I ask her, hey, is John here? She would say, no, he's not here. When she says, no, he's not here, in her heart she's saying, no, he's not here in this room. He could be in another room. But for me, I would understand it as, he's not here, he's not home. He's somewhere else. He's at work, or he's at a shopping mall or something like that. That's a simple way of explaining what taqiyya is. Taqiyya is, you say half of the truth, but you have another half you don't want to say because you want to protect yourself, or you want to change something in a hidden way, which is technically a lie, or what some people might call it a white lie, but it's still a lie. And this is a common thing in Islam. Islam would always tell lies to survive, to invade, to do anything they can. They will rely on lies. So I will start with one of the most common lies. They always lie at Western women, that Islam honors women and made them equal to men. Is that true? Let's see. So, one of the most common lies Muslims or Islam in general, I don't want to say Muslims, my problem is with Islam, not with Muslims, although Muslims represent Islam for me sometimes, is Muslims or Islam says Quran is the book of Islam, honored women. The simplest thing about how Quran honors women, there's a surah is a chapter in Quran, is a surah dedicated only for women. It's called An-Nisa Surah An-Nisa. Surah An-Nisa or An-Nisa Surah is surah number 4 in Quran, and it carries the word An-Nisa. An-Nisa means the women. So they say, oh, see, what like Islam is really honoring women by having a surah called An-Nisa. Okay, so let's go quickly through few verses from that surah and see ourselves if Islam is really honoring women or degrading women. So let's see verse 34 of Surah An-Nisa, where An-Nisa is surah number 4 in Quran. So I'm just going to read this one, but I'm not going to read every single surah in the end in further details. The surah says that men are in charge of women by what Allah has given one over the other and what they from their wealth. So righteous women are devotedly obedient, guarding in absence what Allah would have them guard. But those, between two brackets they say wives, but those wives from whom you fear arrogance, advise them, forsake them in bad, and strike them, but if they obey you, seek no means against them. Indeed, Allah is ever exalted and grand. Well, they try to, in English translation, they try to make it nicer by adding additional notes in it. Anyway, so if you can see the first part of it, men are in charge of women. That's a simple thing about who's really the head. It's the man. And woman is just a property that can be beaten up when she doesn't obey her man. That's how Islam is honoring women in a verse, in a chapter dedicated for women. Okay, there's more than that. In the future, I'm planning to make another episode only for this topic, so I can go through lots of surahs about that. So the second thing about this part is in the hadith, which is the equivalent to what Muhammad is teaching directly, not through the Quran itself, but through his direct conversation with his followers. So, for example, he once mentioned that no nation would ever succeed if they were ruled by a woman. He mentioned that in one of his hadith. And my question is, so why would Muslim refugees go to Germany? Germany is ruled by a woman. Well, another verse, another hadith, he said, women are deficient in intelligence and religion. Women are deficient in intelligence and religion. Of course, if you go to ask any Muslim today, oh, by the way, these things are true? Oh, he might deny, or he might say, no, it doesn't mean that. Remember the term taqiyya I mentioned earlier. They might not give you the truth about that. Anyway, you have your mind. I can give you the references in the end, and you can verify it yourself. There is one specific reference I really want to read. That's from Sahih Muslim, number 1403. You can Google that, you can look that up, Sahih Muslim, number 1403. Sahih Muslim, it's like one of those early Islamic scholars start to collect all the hadith Muhammad did, and this guy was named Muslim, and he took those hadiths from another scholar, his name was Al-Bukhari, and they made like volumes and they put them in certain order. So this is the hadith number 1403 according to Sahih Muslim. So what did Sahih Muslim says about this specific point I wanna focus on? Jabir, this is the beginning of that translation, and forgive the translation, sometimes I have to do manual translation, not relying on, my own translation, not based on translation given by, because Islam or everything in Islam are actually written in Arabic. So Jabir reported that Allah's messenger saw a woman, and so he came to his wife Zainab as she was tanning a leather and had sexual intercourse with her. He then went to his companions and told them, "The woman advances and retires in the shape of a devil. So when one of you sees a woman, he should come to his wife, for that will repel what he feels in his heart." That's just simply how Muhammad sees women. Muhammad sees women as a devil. And if you read the exact translation in Arabic, it's not actually the devil, it's actually Satan, Satan himself. And so Muhammad sees that whenever he sees a woman, for him is just a Satan. And that makes him sexually erotic, and he wants just to have sex with whatever one of his wives right away. And he's commanding his followers to do the same thing. Whenever you just see any woman, know that that's Satan in her. This is Satan, so just go and have sex with your wives just to release that sexual thing that Satan put in your hearts. This is how Islam honors women. Another lie is the Islamic civilization is one of the greatest civilizations. Islamic civilization. Seriously, is there something called Islamic civilization? Where do we see that Islamic civilization? They always, if you read any book of history, mostly written by Muslims, they always tell you that Islamic civilization were prosperous in Egypt, in Syria, in Iraq, and in Spain, and all these countries. The question here. So these countries did not have any civilization before Islam? These countries already have civilization even before Judaism or Christianity. These countries have their civilizations 400 or 600 years ago. They are very old civilizations, and they keep evolving day after day. They are not waiting for Islam to prosper. Any civilizations, the only reason makes any civilization grow is the presence of water, presence of resources such as food and shelter and all these things. Once you have all these, your basic needs satisfied, you can prosper already. Islam did not add anything to it. And let's take a simple example. If Islam is truly behind all these great civilizations, why did Islam itself did not create any civilization in Saudi Arabia where Islam originated? Does it make any sense to you that Islam is being exported from Saudi Arabia? It goes all the way to the world, make all the entire world in a great civilization, but it does not impact its home. Doesn't make any sense until today. Even after all the discovery of oil in Saudi Arabia 70 years ago, Saudi Arabia did not make any great civilization until today. The only thing they are good at is to export terrorism to the entire world. That's all what they have from the oil that was discovered by the Western infidels, and they buy all the fancy cars from the Western infidels. That's all what the Islamic civilization is really all about. Okay, I'll go to another topic, another lie. Islam cares about family values. Is that true? So, one of the family values, how about orphans? They say, Islam is encouraging people to look after orphans. But how about adoption? Do we have any history in Islam about adoption? Well, yes, there is. What about adoption? Muhammad himself, he had a child, or he had a son, adopted son. He adopted a son for a long time. But once Muhammad got the sexual desire towards this son's wife, he decided, you know what, you are no longer my son. He abolished adoption. That's why Islam do not accept adoption. Adoption is illegal in Islam. There is no adoption in Islam. So this way, Muhammad managed to marry his adopted son's wife. How about divorce? Man in Islam has the right to divorce his wife at any time. He's the only one who has the authority to divorce his wife. She does not have this authority. She cannot be divorced even if he abuses her day and night. And he can marry up to 4 women at the same time. What kind of family values are we talking about? Alright, this is just a quick thing. Islam is against slavery. Is that true? who made all these slaves almost across the entire history since the beginning of Islam. No country Islam invaded and didn't take slaves from it. Muhammad himself owned the slaves. Islam or did not abolish slavery or did anything. They might say, oh yeah, but Islam made some rules on how to follow, on how to treat your slaves. And trust me, if we will get back to this thing, this is just another big lie. All right, so let's move to another thing. The first part was mostly about relationships or like how it impacts you in a daily life. Let's go to the one I put in the beginning. Like I had the intention to put it in the beginning, but then I thought maybe I should move it to after the part I just discussed. So one of the biggest lies says Islam means the religion of peace. And they trick you by saying that the word Islam and the word Salam, which means peace, are kind of the same thing. No, there's no correlation between the two words. Islam comes from the word submission. It's kind of, if you ask any devout Muslim what does Islam mean, he would say it means submitting your will to Allah. That's the true meaning or the literal meaning of the word Islam. It has nothing to do with the word peace. That's one of the biggest lies ever. The word peace means salam, not Islam. Completely different words if you know Arabic or if you have some background. Let's see if Quran is really teaching anything about peace. I once mentioned before that Quran is divided into two parts. The first part was written in Mecca when Muhammad was still weak. Of course, you can find some peaceful verses during this time and lots of stories taken literally as is from the Bible, from the Old Testament, and some verses from other pagan religions, even from the infidels. According to Islam, the infidels are in Mecca themselves. Then, when Muhammad failed to attract any followers during this time, he moved from Mecca to Al-Madinah, and in Al-Madinah he started another chapter of Islam, which is the violent chapter, because peace did not work out with him, so he started to use the violence and the killing. That was his new doctrine. And since then, any verses of Quran were written during this time are always having the violent nature, not the peaceful nature that they always Muslims try to recite when they try to attract new Western people to become Muslims. They will always go to the first part, not go to the second. We'll never touch the second part because it's really violent. So I'll give you a few examples from that, from Surah 9. Surah number 9, which is called Al-Tawbah in Arabic, or it means the repentance. And I will read verse number 5. This verse is known for people who study Quran carefully, called the sword verse. It reads like that. And when the sacred months have passed, then kill the polytheists. Sorry, forgive my English. Kill the polytheists wherever you find them, and capture them and besiege them, and sit in wait for them at every place of ambush. But if they should repent, establish prayer and give the zakah, let them go on their way. Indeed, Allah is forgiving and merciful. Yeah, indeed, Allah is very forgiving and merciful. But after killing and do whatever they can to do to them, besiege them and do everything, then He's merciful only if they accept to become Muslims. And so the only condition to see that the forgiveness and mercy of this Allah is to just become another Muslim, to establish prayer and give zakah. Zakah is like your donations for the poor. That's how peaceful it is. Alright, let's see another verse. That in Surah 8, Surah 8 is called Al-Anfal, and honestly I don't know exactly what the word Anfal means. So in Surah 8, verse 12, it says that, when your Lord inspired to the angels, I am with you, so strengthen those who have believed. I will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieved. So strike them upon the necks and strike from them every fingertip. That's what Islam is telling his angels and his followers. Their Allah or their God is telling them, this is how you do to whoever do not believe. Okay, Surah number 8, the same Surah, verse number 60, it says that, and prepare against them whatever you are able, of power and steeds of war, by which you may terrify the enemy of Allah and the enemy of your enemy, and others besides them, whom you do not know, but whom Allah knows. And whatever you spend in the cause of Allah will be fully repaid to you, and you will not be wronged. If you notice, the word terrify is a common word, and whenever we tell Obama there's terrorism, he says, no, terrorism is not Islamic. The word terror itself is part of Quran, and it's a religion of peace. Okay, this is just the verses. Let's see the history of Islam itself. Does it really have anything to do with violence? Well, I tried quickly to go through just the outlines of the different eras of Islam itself and what kind of wars they got involved in. I couldn't really go through all these details, and I cannot present that in one episode anyway. So I'll just start with something about the wars during the time of Muhammad himself. Muhammad is the founder of Islam, so whatever Muhammad does it has to be true. You cannot tell me no, this has nothing to do with that. Muhammad himself, there is something, if you can Google it up, called Ghazawat al-Rasul, which is, in another word, jihad. Ghazawat means wars, al-Rasul, the messenger, so the wars of the messenger himself. And according to many references I found, Muhammad himself was involved in 26 wars. He himself physically was present in 26 wars. 26. Like this, and he lived for he became the Prophet of Islam for around the same number of years, 26 years. So this means he always had a war every year. If maybe more, I'm not accurate on that information. And he also sent another 36 raiders to fight another people. So imagine the history of Islam during Muhammad time itself was involved in 26 plus 36 wars. What kind of peace is that? Muhammad himself broke so many peace treaties he made. He would make a peace treaty with Jews, for example, then he will break it next morning and kill 900 of them in one of his wars, just with the Jews. He did the same thing with what he called the infidels of Quraysh. He would make a peace treaty with them, then he would attack their caravans and kill everybody and steal their gold and steal everything. There are something else called Hurub al-Ridda. Hurub al-Ridda means the wars against who rejected Islam after became Muslims. Ridda means people who followed Islam then rejected Islam. They said, you know what, we don't like Islam, we're leaving it. We are leaving. So since Islam is a one-way, the gates of Islam are only one way, you are not allowed to leave it. And this is another important thing for you if you consider moving to Islam. Know that you will have no exit. So, in Hurub al-Ridda, or the wars against who rejected Islam after accepting it, thousands were killed in those ones. There are lots of wars between the two main denominations of Islam, the Shia and the Sunnah. And most of these wars are just because who wants to get in power after the death of Muhammad and his successors, the 4 successors. So that's just simple, quick thing. There are more like after that time there was another Islamic state started to be based in Damascus, and they were called the Umayyad state, the Umayyin. The Umayyin lived in Damascus, and they started to make more wars. Followed by them, after them there was the Abbasiyin state, and the Abbasiyin state was based in Baghdad in Iraq. And during that time, most of the major invasions reached to even to Europe. During that time, imagine the whole Islam started from Saudi Arabia, then it started to expand all the way north until it reached to Jordan, Syria, Lebanon. Then it started to go east towards Iraq, and it started to go west to Egypt, and from Egypt it started to expand to Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco. Then it started to go north to Europe. It really invaded Spain, and from Spain it continued and wanted to go to France. Thank God, like the French started to stop them, and by the time they start to leave Spain, the Spanish people managed to kick them out finally after 700 years in Spain. Until today, Muslims believe that Spain is an Islamic country, and one day they want it back. So one might say, oh, but all these wars in Islam and all these verses I just referred earlier are only to defend Islam, which actually this is a big lie, because in Islam there's nothing is not defending. Islam is considering the entire world into two, like there is two big divisions for the world: a house of Islam and a house of war. A house of Islam, which means any country that's controlled by Islam, follow the Sharia law, and any country that does not do that is called a house of war. So this means as long as Islam exists, the duty of the house of Islam is to invade that house of war and to convert it into a house of Islam. And that's exactly what's happening nowadays by ISIS. ISIS is doing exactly the same thing. ISIS didn't come up with anything new. ISIS is doing exactly what Muhammad did and what his successors did, and what Quran itself teaches, and what Muhammad himself taught his followers through the Hadith. Nothing is new. How about the Ottoman Empire? The Ottoman Empire that was based on Turkey. They killed 1.5 million of Christian Armenians in 1915 or 1914. I do not exactly remember the date now. And that was documented by photographs, documented by journalists, and still being denied. Many Muslim countries still deny the existence of those genocides against the Armenians. That was something in the recent history. How about the older history that was not recorded or was not photographed? That's a typical Islam. That's this taqiyya. The lie to you. How about nowadays terrorism? Those people, this latest Brussels explosions, and before that Paris, and what happened in Nigeria and Kenya and many other countries where Islam is involved in those things. They live literally in that house of Islam against the house of war situation. Are they defending themselves? Are the ones who exploded in Brussels, are they defending Islam? I believe they will keep doing that until they go to Mars one day. Oh, sorry. Okay. This is another thing that they always say about the other lie. I already covered this one about that Islamic wars are only to defend Muslim land and Muslim properties and Muslim faith. So when did Muslim, at the beginning of Islam, according to Islam itself, for 10 years Muhammad had only 70 followers. 70 followers, where most of them were poor. So they did not have land and did not have any resources, did not have anything. What are they defending? Most of Muhammad's wars were mainly to attack tribes, to attack caravans, to attack businesses, to attack everything owned by non-Muslims. What kind of defending is that? Defending what exactly? You have nothing. What would you defend if you have nothing? So this is another big lie, and they always say, oh, all these verses from Quran are only applicable during self-defense, not attacking, which is not true. Okay, one of the major double standard, the point number 6. Now I'm gonna touch the line number 6 is they always say that the only reason behind the Islamic opening, which is technically invasion of many countries such as North Africa and the Syrian and Lebanese and Jordanian lands and Iraq, were only to set the natives of those countries free from the Roman and the Persian occupation. First of all, I see lots of double standard here. First of all, whenever you see Islam is attacking a new country, they always call that opening of this land. They opened Egypt, they opened Syria, they opened Iraq, they opened Turkey. But if somebody else, like for example, if you take Israel, it's invasion. So why is that double standard? Why, when you go kill people far from you, when you went all the way to Spain, you crossed all Africa and all the way north until you went to Spain, you crossed the Mediterranean, you still call that opening, but when somebody does the opposite, or at least those people try to get back their lands, they are invaders. And they are raiders against you, against Islam. Anyway, that wasn't my point. I want to just to quickly mention about the double standard thing we always see in Islam. You'll always see the double standard in everything in their lives. But I'll go back to my main point here, that their point was, we just came here to set you free from the Romans and from the Persians. Well, thank you, you did that. Why are you still here? It's exactly the same way when people make fun of George Bush. George Bush went to Iraq and went to Afghanistan to set those people free. People went crazy and told them, okay, you did that, just go home now. Well, why don't we apply the same thing on Islam? Thank you, Muslims. You came and set the Coptics in Egypt. Coptics are the native Egyptians, and most of them are Christians, from the Romans. Okay, thank you. You did that. Great job. Bye-bye. No, we are not gonna do that. We are staying. We are your new invaders. So we just got rid of Romans, we replaced them with the Arabs. Same thing with in Syria. So I'll give you quick examples. The other lie is they just came for this purpose. Okay, then you leave. Okay, sorry, I mentioned that. Then the lie number 7, that it says that the natives of these countries welcomed Islam. Why? Why would I welcome an invader? Why would I welcome somebody who speaks a different language, who forces a different religion, who asks for my money? Why? It doesn't make any sense. I'll give you a few examples of what these people did. One of the leaders who invaded Syria, his name was Khalid ibn al-Walid. Khalid ibn al-Walid, Muslims call him the shining sword of Allah. Like, he's known as like a person who killed many people, so his sword is always shining everywhere, killing people all the time. And this person like besieged Syria, and then of course the Syrian, they start to defend their land from that invader, and he captured 70,000 of them. Most of them were Christians. What he did with them? He killed them all. Are you gonna tell me because he was defending himself? Well, he was in Mecca, 1,000 miles south of Damascus. He went all the way to protect himself. Are you going to protect your house in Boston from a person you are afraid of in Los Angeles? And you tell me you are protecting yourself? Does it make any sense to you? Are you going to kill a person in Los Angeles knowing that, oh, one day he might invade my house in Boston? Doesn't make any sense. So Khalid ibn Walid killed 70,000. So would people in this land welcome him, welcome Islam? Does it make any sense to you? In Egypt, at the same time Khalid ibn Walid went to Damascus, maybe around the same time, one few years give or take before that, Amr ibn al-As, another Islamic leader who led the war against Egypt. He took Egypt as well from the Romans. And one of the biggest lies, they always say that the Coptics like the Coptics are the native Egyptians, as I mentioned earlier, and mostly are Christians, welcomed him because he set them free from the Roman oppression. Well, yeah, that's true. So this Amr ibn al-As, one of the funny stories known about him, he actually had bad reputation. Even Muslims admit that he had bad reputation, that he was a thief. Like he would collect the money and not send it back to Saudi Arabia. He would collect the money from the poor people in Egypt and send the money to Saudi Arabia. And one day he didn't send enough money, so the Khalifa, or like the successor of Muhammad at that time, was Umar ibn Khattab, sent him a letter telling him, you should send the money you are supposed to send. How come you didn't send it yet? So Amr ibn al-As sent him a message, and he told him, with this message you will get the caravan I sent, the caravan of camels carrying goods. And of course the goods are full of food and gold and wheat and everything they can get from Egypt. Egypt was a very wealthy country at that time, but Saudi Arabia had nothing. And the funny thing of that message, he said this caravan begins in Mecca and it ends in Egypt. Like, you can imagine like how long that trip gonna be. It's the beginning of the caravan. It starts at your place and it ends at my place. Imagine like you have a train long, like 500 miles long or 1,000 miles long train carrying goods. What did they leave in Egypt? Anyway, so he himself mentioned that it's known about him as well that he killed Coptic people, native Egyptian again, because they hid their gold from him. Okay. Another lie is the natives of these countries welcome Islam. Okay, I mentioned that. Well, yeah, one of the most common things you always hear is people, any Muslim you ask them, they will tell you, ISIS does not represent Islam. Really? ISIS does not represent Islam? So, if that's true, if ISIS does not represent Islam and ISIS is giving bad reputation to Islam, tell me, if you are a Muslim listening to the thing, why didn't you go and revolt against Islam, against ISIS? You revolted when people posted some cartoons making fun of Muhammad in Denmark in 2006 or maybe 2005. I don't remember the exact time at that then. Why didn't you revolt now? Why don't you revolt now against ISIS? That's carrying a flag says La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Why don't you revolt against that? They carry a flag with Islamic words and they use this flag killing people. Well, ISIS represents Islam then or not? This is the double standard I'm expecting. Well, they always say another lie, Islam respects the other heavenly religions. Well, that's true. So Islam respects Judaism and Christianity. Is that true? So why do we have many verses insulting Islam, insulting Judaism and Jews and Christians? Why Quran itself says that Jews are the brothers of monkeys and pigs? Does that respect to them? Lie number 10, Allah, the God of Islam, is the same God of Jews and Christians. Is that true? So, if it is the same God, so you should be believing in the same Bible. Why your book does not carry? Why Islam does not, like the Quran does not have the additional parts of the previous books? If you believe it's the same Allah and they have the same books. For example, Christians, I'm Christian, I mentioned that earlier. We Christians, we believe in the Old Testament that was given to, according to the Islamic language, was given to the Jews. We use this book in addition to the New Testament, and we have both of them in one in one book, and we have one of them called the Old Testament and the New Testament. We did not change, we didn't alter anything. We didn't say that the Old Testament was counterfeited and we're not gonna rely on it. We're gonna only rely on the New Testament. No, we accept both. So if you came after both of these two books, your book should be the Old Testament, or like the Oldest Testament, the Middle Testament, and the New Testament, which is Quran. No, you don't do that. If you believe in the same God, you should believe in the same book. I hope to hear some answer about this point. Well, line number 11, sorry, I took a long time, I'll try to be very quick. Line number 11, that Quran, the holy book of Islam, is from Allah, and hence it is the most accurate book historically, grammatically, and geographically. I'll go quickly give you a few examples of how accurate Quran is. Historically, one of the funny stories in Quran, that Quran refers to Mary as Mary, the sister of Aaron and Moses. At the same time, the same Mary is the mother of Jesus. If I remember, between Moses and Jesus, there's 1,500 years. What kind of super Mary is that? Okay, I'm not gonna comment more about that. Grammar. They say Quran is the perfect, is a miracle by itself because of its language, which is Arabic, and they always challenge Arabs that they cannot make a similar book with that excellent Arabic. One of the funny things that whenever in Quran there's a grammar mistakes, they say that the text in the Quran is right and the grammar is wrong at this time. For example, I'll give you an example. If I say this car is green, this is the proper grammar. This car is green. You cannot tell me this car are green. Okay? Well, if you tell me, okay, but this is written in the Bible, so okay, we're gonna have an exception here that this car are green is right because it's written in the Bible. Sure, that's fine. Okay, I'll accept that. What if the same verse is written twice in Quran, but one of them is following the incorrect grammar and one of them is written in the right grammar? One is wrong and one is right. So what am I supposed to believe? Which one is right now? The same verse is mentioned twice. One with wrong grammar, one with right grammar. So this is how accurate Quran is. Well, okay, I'm gonna go quickly through a few things. One of just like another double standard you will see in Islam. Islam always say that, yeah, in Islamic economy, we do not rely on interest because interest is a bad thing. How come you get money for something you didn't work for? Like, for example, how come you leave your money in a bank and get interest? That's haram. Haram, it's the opposite of halal, and haram means forbidden, halal is permitted. So it's forbidden to put your money in a bank or get money from a bank because of the interest. Well, is that true? Sure. Okay, that's fine. And so they came up with a new solution now called the Islamic banks. So if you want to get your mortgage, you go to one of those Islamic banks and you get money because the bank does not charge you for interest. That's fine. But still, if you go to this bank, okay, please, I want to buy a house and this house is going to cost me $100,000. Sure, we will give you $100,000. So this means you're not going to charge me any interest? Oh yeah, we are not going to charge you any interest. But in the end, you have to pay us $180,000. Okay, so what's that 80,000 difference? Well, that's profit, not interest. Well, you can tell me what it makes, what difference is that? I'm sorry, I'm really tired. Okay, I want to conclude what I just said with one quick thing. This quick thing says that the theory itself is correct, but the application of the theory is wrong. True, really. So if that theory is correct, but the application is wrong, can that be true for 1,400 years? That's a really long time. And how about the founder of the theory himself? Should he also make mistakes in the application? Thank you. I'm really sorry. It was really long episode compared to my previous episodes. Bye bye.